This is your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, October 1st, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. In government shutdown, 80% of federal employees will keep working. This from BusinessInsider.com. They call it a government shutdown, but of about 4.1 million people who work for the federal government, about 80% will still be expected to show up for work. The roughly 3.3 million federal employees who will have to work fall into three main categories. Workers whose pay is not subject to annual appropriation, workers whose jobs are necessary to carry out activities that are not subject to annual appropriation, and workers whose jobs are essential to protect life or property. The Washington Post has a roundup of agencies with many employees deemed essential under this exception. Agencies where most employees will still be working include the Department of Homeland Security, including the TSA, Secret Service, Customs and Border Patrol, and FEMA, the Department of Transportation, including the FAA, the Departments of Veterans Affairs, including VA hospitals, and the Department of Justice, including the FBI, DEA, and Bureau of Prisons. Government shutdown means no drug testing for air traffic controllers, from PBS. Gone unnoticed in countless stories about the government shutdown is one tiny bit of information concerning Department of Transportation employees. Workers at the DOT will not be undergoing drug tests for the duration of the shutdown. Of the Department of Transportation's 55,468 person staff, 18,481 will be furloughed. Employees like air traffic controllers and safety inspectors are considered vital to air traffic safety and will still be on the job. The lack of drug tests isn't the only way the government shutdown will affect the Department of Transportation. Personnel also won't undergo routine background investigations. As for whether drug testing will be stopped at other agencies, that's unclear. The Department of Homeland Security, Commerce, Health and Human Services, the Interior, and Justice don't mention anything about drug testing in their official government shutdown documents. Colorado accepts historic applications for recreational marijuana shops, from the Denver Post. Colorado marked a new marijuana milestone on Tuesday when it became the first state in U.S. history to begin taking applications from people wanting to open legal recreational marijuana stores. Just after 9 a.m., Andy Williams, the owner of the Medicine Man Medical Marijuana Dispensary, stepped into an office conference room to become one of the first to submit an application. As of Tuesday morning, the state had scheduled 50 appointments for people wanting to open recreational marijuana stores, growing facilities, and infused products operations. Another 10 appointments are waiting to be finalized, and a dozen more businesses have emailed requesting appointments. All the available appointments for Tuesday and Wednesday have been booked, said John Seckman, the agent in charge of licensing and background checks for the Marijuana Enforcement Division. Group petitions for pot, from the Jackson Hole Daily. A Jackson-based group has petitioned state lawmakers to include a marijuana legalization initiative on the 2016 ballot. Christine Christian, director of the Wyoming chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or NORML, submitted an application to the Secretary of State in Cheyenne on Monday afternoon. If lawmakers place the issue on the ballot, it would be the first time Wyoming citizens could vote on legalizing marijuana. Another Wyoming nonprofit called Weed Wyoming announced Sunday that it will introduce an initiative to allow the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes alone. Said the Weed Wyoming president in a press release, James Lake, quote, "Although there is already an initiative in the pipeline for the 2016 ballot addressing marijuana law reform, its whole ball of wax approach has no chance, as it is our experience that there is a lot of support for reform in our state, but the vast majority of that support is for medical reform and not recreational use," end quote. Cali man convicted after cops smell pot on money, from hightimes.com. It is now officially a crime in the Golden State for your money to smell like illegal contraband. At least that appears to be the consensus of one California jury who turned in a guilty verdict against a Sebastopol resident, William David Bush, on Friday for the crime of possessing money collected from the sale of marijuana. According to reports, police arrested Bush last week after a routine traffic stop, though even a more extensive search did not uncover any punishable traces of marijuana. Officers believed that the money reeked of pot so intensely that there was no other rational explanation for the loot besides being the product of a felonious drug deal. Strangely, jurors managed to convict Bush, who represented himself in court, without first being permitted to smell the evidence themselves. This has been your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, October 1st, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines for more stories about the smell of marijuana from Seattle and Denver, where police are dealing with complaints about marijuana smell. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors.